Okay, what I'd like to do now is show you the system and the indicators that we use over at processtrading.com to analyze and trade the price action of the S&P E-mini futures. First of all, we use basically four indicators: the VWAP and ATR indicator, which is this line here, and then three other indicators: the effort oscillators, the momentum oscillator, and the short-term trend oscillator. The VWAP ATR is the volume-weighted average price, but embedded in that, it also has the ATR. So on an uptrend, the ATR is yellow, and when it goes green, that means the price is above 2 ATR, and if it goes blue, that means it's above 3 ATR. When the VWAP is gray, that is when price is in a downtrend, and when it is red, that means it's below 2 ATR, and when it's white, it means it's below 3 ATR. Now, the effort oscillator is a proxy for volume. Embedded in it is volume, but volume is also included in the volume weighted average price. So we account for volume in several ways. One of them is within the effort oscillator. We're looking at what is the effort within the volume to take price up or to move price down. And within the effort oscillator here, we have color-coded effort bars, which are the magenta bars and the cyan bars, which usually mean that it's trying to take price in a positive direction. Of course, you have the main ones, which are the green, which is price moving in a positive direction, and the red, which is moving in a negative direction. The gray bars here indicate weakness coming in to those efforts. And then there are other color codes like the dark red and the blue bars within the downtrend that signify a change maybe coming underfoot. So here you see the dark red and it changes here. Here you see the blue and it changes here. So we read this oscillator to tell us exactly what the effort is that's behind the price action and the volume associated with it. Next is the momentum oscillator, which is a hybrid oscillator. So you have price momentum, this tricolored line here, and then this more solid line here is the trend momentum. And then this dashed line here is the time momentum, which basically tells us what is the price action of the price and the trend over time. And then lastly, we have the short-term trend oscillator with the pullback line here, which it often will hit and then price will pull back. So I'm not really going to go over reading all these oscillators, which simplifies the whole process and makes it clear as to what the price action in the buying and selling is trying to achieve. But I want to point out one thing in particular, in that we know that price follows momentum, and momentum follows volume or effort. So if we had two indicators on our screen, what two would we want? Well, we would want then the momentum oscillator, because price follows momentum, and then we'd want the effort behind that momentum. And one thing in particular I want to point out here, and that's the main thing that we're going to see, is the correlation on the VWAP of the ATR and the momentum oscillator, the price momentum on the oscillator, and then later the time momentum. So you'll see in every one of these instances where trades are associated, there is a white line and then there's a colored line associated with it. Of course, the green means to the upside and the red means to the downside. The white line is the first alert indication of when the trade is being looked for, and the colored lines are where the trades would be taken. Now, the simple thing I'm showing you in this discussion is at every instance, you will find that the ATR has changed colors. Like here is the normal color for a downtrend, being this, and it turned red right here. So we have a change of color in the VWAP to red, and then we see the price momentum below the lower bound. Here we have the trigger where the VWAP turned green and the price momentum was above the upper bound. That's going to be the situation for every one of these trades. That's all we're depicting on this particular session. There's many other ways to take trend trades, contrarian trades, and discretionary trades, but this is one that identifies when a trade is setting up and when to take that trade. So let's start going through these. First, we had this trade right here set up where we had price momentum below the lower bound and we had the VWAP change color. So when we look at the effort here, we see that the effort is declining to the downside. In other words, the effort is receding. We know that by the size of the effort bars here. And here we see the price momentum cutting up through the time momentum right at this point. And that's going to be the instance in every case. We're going to see when it changes color, when the price momentum is either below or above the lower and upper limits, and when price momentum crosses over the time momentum. So this would be where we would get into our long trade. You can see that, and that works right here. Another thing we use is these timing alert dots. That's these blue dots, and you can see a blue dot right here. Those are specific in timing the alerts, when to be alert for a trade. And I'll point those out, like you had one right here. It's hard to see with the line, but I'll point those out. But those aren't the specific things we're focusing in on today. Today we're just focusing in on the VWAP, the change in color, and the position of the price momentum line in the oscillator. So over here, we have a change in color of the VWAP. We have price momentum above the upper bound. And then right here, we see price momentum cutting down through the time momentum. So now this is the time to take the trade to the short side. Of course, trying to stay in the trade and maximize it, we do use the effort oscillator and everything. But right now, pretty much I am just trying to indicate how to identify the trades. Okay, so let's move this over here. And so we can get in the next group of trades. So right here, we see that, hang on. We see that the VWAP has changed color here to white, and then right at that point, that is when price momentum crosses above the time momentum. So that's when we get into the long trade right there. right here, we see that prices change color. We see that the price momentum has, right at this point, cut through, or has cut through time momentum right at this point right here. So this is where we take a trade to the downside. This is where we have the same situation here. We have the VWAP changing colors. We had price momentum below it, and we have the price momentum crossing above time momentum. So this would be telling us to take a trade to the upside, and that's in this area right here. But now you see within this blue box here, we see that the effort to take that up is this down momentum going to be able to absorb this little bit of uptrend here? And so, yes, they are trying to, buying is trying to come in, and the effort shows it right here with the green effort bar. But you'll see that right afterwards, the next effort bar is lower than the previous one, and these are smaller than many of these others. So we see that there is effort there, but it's not a strong effort. And as a matter of fact, when the effort bar here starts to decline and then declines even more over here, then where you got in here, you would get out up here of your long trade. So that's the advantage of having an effort oscillator as opposed to just a volume indicator. Okay, so over here is the next one. We see that the VWAP has changed color. Momentum is below the lower bound, and here is where it cuts up across the time momentum. And so this is where you get in your trade to the long side and take it up over here. Okay, the next one, I'm just going to continue to move these over. Let's take a look at the next one. Next one, we see it change colors here. It's below the bottom. We have the same thing. Here's where we take it to the long side because it's cutting through. Now, again, I'm not going over every aspect of every indicator. I'm just showing you where the setups occur, and then a little bit on how you would manage the trade once you're in the setup. So you're going to the long side over here. Now, you might think that you're going to get out here because here is a change in the VWAP color. Price momentum is above the upper bound here, and it's starting to come down. But as you can see, nowhere in here, you see this dashed line is always below the price momentum line. This is why on this particular trade, you would not take this trade. And that's why there's no color bar associated with it, because it never crosses the time momentum. Price momentum never crosses the time momentum. So you're staying with this. Now, here we have another situation where it changed, the color changed. Your price momentum right at the white vertical line here is above the upper bound, and here it cuts down through it. But you see that immediately after it cuts down through it, so you'd be taking this trade to the short side, but you see immediately after it cuts down through it, it goes back up. And you see that the effort here is still high. There's still strong effort to take price to the upside. It is declining here. It is showing some weakness, but it's far above the zero line, and there's no effort to take it to the downside. So that's why you want to be reading the effort indicator as well as the momentum indicators. We'll see on the next trade, which is right here, because the VWAP change, we know it's above 3 ATR, and then we see price momentum now above the upper oscillator limit, and here we see it cutting down through the time momentum, and we see that the effort oscillator had price above the upper bound, and now it's angling down. Each one is stepping down lower and lower. So in this particular case, had these gone back up, or had this gone back up above the time momentum, then we would have got out. But we stayed in because it's coming down, and then indeed weakness comes in right at this point here. So when we look at the next one, we see the white vertical line. We see that the VWAP changed color, and the price momentum is above the upper bound. But then when we look at the price momentum, it comes down here, and it doesn't cross until way over here. So the time is kind of extended from when it's crossed, and not only that, the price momentum line is near the bottom of the oscillator now. So this would not be a trade that we would have engaged. So now let's continue moving this on. So we can look at the next group of trades. These are all the trades from just Friday that were potential. So now we look at the next one. We see that here the VWAP has changed colors. We see that this is above the upper bound, but again, it doesn't cross. Price momentum doesn't cross time momentum until way over here. And at that point, we see that the effort then is weakening to take price up, but it never goes negative. And even at this point right here, it turns back up. So getting in, the price momentum is kind of too far extended from over here where first I've identified the trade. And now really what it's identifying, normally this would be associated with a trade to the downside because you have price momentum coming down and you have the VWAP above 2 ATR, actually above 3 ATR there and 2 ATR here. But really what it's identifying is a pullback. And we can see those in other instances as well. So in an uptrend or a strong uptrend or a strong downtrend, these kind of help you to identify the pullbacks. You know, again, it's extended over too far from the initial signal for the entry. You can see the price is just a bunch of dojis because they're fighting it out. And then we see that this just indicated where there was a pullback, and now the effort starts to go to the positive sign again. And then we have the magenta bars, which tells us of a likely up move that continued on over here. In this trade, we see that the VWAP changed color, and we have the position of the price momentum line. And then directly afterwards, you know, it wasn't far extended from it. It's directly afterwards that price momentum cut down through time momentum. And so we get in here and we see that price action to the downside. Over here, we have the change in color. We have the position of the price momentum. Then we have the price momentum crossing down through the time momentum. So we enter our short trade over here, and we see that price momentum never came across time momentum again until way over here, way at this point it crossed it. And we see that the weakness in effort here is starting to wane a little bit and dissipate a little bit as the efforts to take it down to the short side are becoming weaker, and then eventually it takes it up over here. So let's move on. Let's get to the next group of trades. And we can see that the rationale for these trades, I won't go through them because they're just repetitive. Here is the initiation line. Here's the trade line. Here's the initiation line. And this is one where we see that we do have the change in color and we do have the price momentum, but it doesn't go below time momentum until way over here. And this might be a trade that you take or would not take right at this point, but we do see the red bars coming in over here, so this would also be a valid entry over here. Although you have to be considerate of price momentum is now below the lower oscillator. However, look at the effort. The effort is huge to take it to the downside. That means that sellers are just stepping in, you know. And then over here, we do have a blue bar within the red. Now, the magenta bars tell us that there's some weakness in that down move. However, the length of the bars and the effort tell us that this is very strong to the downside, and they're going to be able to absorb any of the buying effort that's taking place. Here we have it kind of starting to go in the upward direction. The bars are getting shorter, and over here we have a blue bar that tells us that at some point here we're going to be looking for a change in direction. Now here you have an initiation line and a trade line, and you could take that to the upside, but this blue bar here is basically talking about the movement from here up to here. Okay, so let's see, I think there may be a couple more trades, and then it'll be at the 4 o'clock effort. Yeah, that's the end of the trades right there. So here we have the initiation line, the trade line for all the valid reasons within the VWAP and the momentum. Here we have one that, here's the initiation line, because the VWAP changed color here. It's green here, it's gray, and then it's green here. And we see price above it. And even though this is to the downside, and of course it's accurate, it did go down over here, we see the price momentum doesn't cut through the time momentum until way over here. And that's a little far for us to get extended just on this scenario of the where the initiation line comes in and then the trade line comes in. However, one thing I didn't mention, I'll mention it now, is the price bars up here are color-coded, and you can see there's some white bars, there's some gray bars, there's some yellow bars, and those give us indication of when unusual activity is taking place to one side or another. So when we see these two white bars coming down, associated with this being a down initiation line for a trade, we could have stepped in here and taken this to the downside. But just using the two indications that I've been talking about today, which is the color change in the price momentum position within the oscillator, we would not have taken this trade simply because it's too far extended over from the initiation line. Here we have another trade, and we have the initiation line here. We have the trade line here. And it's questionable whether we would have taken this trade or not. Again, just like over here, we had the two price cycle bars that were white that would allow us to take that. We have the same thing here. We have the two price cycle bars that are a good indication. That along with the initiation line, the change of color, the price momentum, it crossing the time momentum, that would have been a good trade down there. But there's a possibility that we would have stepped aside from this trade simply because of the time being 6 minutes to closing. So that's the way this works for the simple and effective way of using the VWAP in the price momentum. So makes sense. Price follows momentum. Momentum follows effort. Those are the things that we're tracking here and we're reading. And then we have clear indications of an initiation line and then a trade line. So I hope this takes some of the complexity out of trading the S&P Emini, and I hope this makes sense. If it does or it doesn't, you can leave a comment below or go over to processtrading.com, and at the bottom of the page there's the contact form there where you can leave a comment or a question and we'll get back to you. So if you want to get more of these videos, you can like them, and until next time, I hope all your trading goes